Gabe Cook here, coming to you on a very chilly day in January. And I have some exciting news. The 2009-2010 policy debate topic has been released. Now, it was released a few days ago, but I've been doing some research so that I could give kind of an introduction to the topic, talk to you about potential areas that you could explore as this year winds up and you start to head towards, hopefully, your summer research at a debate camp. And be looking out for information from Debate Kansas City soon on how to apply for summer debate camp scholarships, where you will learn about the new topic, poverty. That's right. The resolution will be resolved that the United States federal government should substantially increase social services for persons living in poverty in the United States. My first thought on this topic, it's big. All right, this is a huge topic. There's a lot of different areas that you can explore. The first thing that I want to start with is defining social services. All right, listen to the resolution again. Resolved. The United States federal government should substantially increase social services for persons living in poverty in the United States. So that means we have to help people that are in poverty, and we have to use social services to do it. So the first thing to think about, what are social services? Well, Business Dictionary 2007 says that it's the benefits and facilities such as education, food subsidies, health care, and subsidized housing provided by a government to improve the life and living conditions of children, disabled, the elderly, and the poor in the national community. All right, so that's one definition, and that includes a lot of things, right? It had education, food, housing, the elderly, children, the disabled. Another definition from World Web Online 2008, a little bit shorter, a little bit simpler: social service, an organized activity to improve the condition of disadvantaged poor people in society. So under that definition, anything that's organized and an activity would be a social service, so long as it's designed to improve the condition of disadvantaged people in society. So those definitions lead me to believe that the topic is still pretty big. All right, now before we get into specific things that you might be able to do on the affirmative side of the topic, let's look at the problem itself. How bad is poverty in this country? Well, it's actually pretty bad. There was a report from Katrina von Hufvud. She was quoted in the topic paper. People write a paper to support the topic before everybody votes on it. And this is a piece of evidence that was submitted in the poverty topic paper, and it says that 1 in 8 Americans, approximately 37 million people, live below the federal poverty line. 1 in 8 people live below the poverty line. The poverty line for a family of 4 is $19,971 a year. All right, and if you have a family of 4 and you're making $25,000 a year, you're not exactly breaking the bank. So 1 in 8 people living below that threshold is pretty darn significant. The General Accounting Office released a report in 2007 that said 12.3 million children, or 17% of all children, are living in poverty in the United States. That's a lot of kids in the wealthiest country in the world living in poverty. And when you take a look at racial and ethnic breakdowns, the GOA says that African Americans and Hispanics have significantly higher rates of poverty than whites. In 2005, almost 25% of African Americans and 22% of Hispanics lived in poverty. You compare that to 8% of the population for whites. So we have a lot of people living in poverty and a lot of oppressed and disadvantaged groups that are living in poverty. And when you look at the elderly, they typically have lower rates of poverty. Only 10% of adults age 65 or older live in poverty. That might possibly be because of a very successful social service program, Social Security. Just something to consider. Now, it isn't because the federal government is spending $0 on social services. We're actually spending about $400 billion a year on 84 different programs. The question is, are we spending it right, and is that enough money? All right, so the problem. Lots of people living in poverty, disadvantaged groups, especially though not the elderly as much as you may think. Now let's take a look at some potential solution areas. One area, child welfare. All right, people always like to help the children, they're the future and all that good stuff. So you'll be able to find evidence about programs that specifically target children. One possibility is Head Start. Another is to look into the foster care system and the adoption system. You'll find a lot of different cases and some controversies within those systems on what should be done. Another possible area, illegal immigration. Should illegal immigrants be provided social services? There's going to be some good evidence that says yes, they should, and there's also going to be some evidence that says they should not, of course, as there's always, two sides to every issue. But it's sort of a hot button issue right now, in providing social services to illegal immigrants, I suspect will be a popular case at the camps this summer. You also have to take a look at faith-based social services. In the Bush presidency, W number 2, they really spent a lot of money on church organizations running social services, and there's a lot of literature that says we shouldn't do that. And then, like I say, of course, there's some that says we should, but it's another topic area that you can investigate. There's also different types of programs for the elderly, though surprisingly their poverty rates are lower than other groups. Mental health is another huge area that you can explore. Poor mental health often leads to homelessness. So expanding social services to folks with mental health problems could make a substantial dent in poverty. And there's a number of different cases that you could explore in that area. As many of you may remember, especially coaches, mental health was actually its own area for debate a few years ago. So the fact that it fits under the umbrella of this poverty topic shows you just how big this topic actually is. Crime and juvenile justice. You could find programs that target prisoners, try to prevent recidivism. You see, people will get out of jail, they don't have any job skills, so then they go back to committing crime. Well, if you provided social services that gave them some job skills, maybe you prevent them going back to a life of crime. That's another area. Healthcare. A core social service, I would think, would be healthcare, so different ways to provide that. Education. There's all kinds of education programs that you could support. You could even argue that just making public schools better would be a type of social service, especially for impoverished communities. Jobs programs. And another group that you can look into would be Native Americans. Actually, the ethnic minority that faces the highest rates of poverty in this country is Native Americans, and there's a number of social service areas that you could explore that specifically target Native Americans, tribal programs, etc. Now, those are sort of some areas within the topic. Another question that you have to ask yourself is more philosophical. You could explore the causes of poverty, and you could do much broader research and have a broader reach in your case. You could get into issues of race and say that one of the biggest causes of poverty is racism and structural racism within the country. You could also look at capitalism. You could say our economic system creates poverty, and that's really what we need to be fixing. You could look at gender issues. You can still find that women face higher rates of poverty than men. Or you could look to the structure of the state itself and say that the state government somehow creates poverty. So there's a lot of different issues with this topic. I just kind of wanted to get my initial thoughts out there, give you all something to think about. If you have any questions, email me, cookgabe@umkc.edu. It's a big topic. It's going to be a fun topic. Take care.